Welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here on the west coast of Canada. I hope everybody has had an awesome week and I hope you're all starting off a great weekend. Everybody, this is a members chat class. Of course, everybody is welcome to watch. And in this class, we're looking at an IELTS Task 1 writing. Specifically, we're looking for a Band 9 pie chart. Now, right away, this is an academic Task 1 in the academic IELTS. Your first writing task is either going to be a bar chart, a line graph, a pie chart, maybe a diagram. If you're doing the general IELTS, it's a little bit different. General IELTS will be, I should say, completely different. General IELTS Task 1 will be a letter that you're writing to a friend or your coworker. So there are two very different types of essays. Keep that in mind. Nevertheless, it's good writing practice regardless of which type of IELTS you're going to sit. Welcome to our group of members. Welcome back, Just Paul. Carolina, nice to have our moderator. Yes, I see that you're back, Just Paul. That's awesome. Hi, Jaineel. Hi, Kyber. Hi, Cass. Good to see so many of our members already here. Students, this is a lesson that's brought to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS. Visit us there. For general IELTS, visit us at gieltshelp.com. Our academic IELTS website looks like this with this blue background, and all you have to do to join our premium package is to click this red button that's just above my head here, and it's a one-time payment for lifetime access. So go ahead and click that button and save yourself a lot of headache and trouble and get those maximum IELTS scores. For general IELTS, it's the same idea. It's the green background. And again, all you want to do is just click this button right there, the Join Now button. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access. And we are an official IELTS test registration center, as you can see here, and we're certified British Council agents. So you're in great hands with us for your IELTS preparation. We help thousands of students every day to prepare. Welcome, Ali. Hi, Baljit. Welcome, June. So, students, we still have this discount, Pass IELTS. It's a 20% discount. You can use that on those websites that I just showed you, and that's coming from our newsletter, Correct Learning, and we're going to talk about that because there are correct and incorrect ways to write Task 1. And if you have questions, you can just send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com, and we'll get back to you. We do have free evaluations for your writing band score, and all you have to do is send us an email with your Task 1 or your Task 2 writing, and we'll let you know roughly your band score that you can expect. Members, kind of an important note here before we get into the question. Tomorrow, the members chat class will be a Q&A class. So if you have questions about English, about IELTS, then tomorrow is your chance to ask me and get responses or get answers to your inquiries. And then we'll also have a speaking part 1 tomorrow where everybody will be able to join the class. Again, this is a members chat class. You can click the join button on our channel next to the subscribe button to become a channel member. If you don't see that, send me an email. We can help you to become a member. For example, Apple users need a special link to become a member. And we will have an all chat class coming up in about 90 minutes roughly after this class, which will be focusing on reading. Okay, so don't worry, you'll get a chance to join the chat a little bit later. Okay. All right, everyone. So yeah, Baljit, you can get feedback on your written work as well, even if you're not good at typing. Okay. All right, everyone, so this is IELTS Task 1, writing, and we're looking at pie charts, and you should spend 20 minutes on this task. Your first job is to read the question really carefully, okay? So let's do that. And you can see these giant pies here right beside me. So there, that's what we're gonna be looking at today. Okay, let's get into this. So the following chart, let's put an S on that, there's two of them, show the percentage of electricity production by fuel source in Belgium in 2 years. Report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, to the point. All right, so your first step, again, read the question, and then it says write at least 150 words. That's really important, students, that you write at least 150. Again, just a reminder, most Band 8 and 9 essays, well, I should even say Band 7, 8 and 9 essays have around 220 words for this task. Okay, so 150 is the minimum to get task completion, but it's very difficult, if not impossible, to write a good essay in 150 words. 150 words is really not a lot, and you think, well, 20 minutes, but yeah, 20 minutes, if you think about it, like many people will be able to type 40 to 50 words per minute. So 20 minutes is quite a bit of time to type even 220 words, as long as you know what you're doing and you still have time to think about the English, okay? So step 1, read the question and look at the graph or chart carefully. Okay, that's what you do first. So we read the question, all right? So we know that these slices, okay, so these here are called slices or pieces or portions, all right? So these are showing the percentage of electricity that has been produced by a certain type of fuel source in the country of Belgium. Okay, and then here at the top we have the description for the different types of fuel sources. There's coal, there's oil, there's natural gas, hydropower, and there's nuclear power, okay? And this is referred to as the legend. So when you see this on a map or on a graph, this is referred to as your legend, okay? And we can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different fuel sources. And then last but not least, we observe the years. So we have 1990 and we have 2010, okay? All right, so we're good to go. And now we can begin step 2, which is actually beginning our essay, okay? So step 2 is start the essay. Members, what type of essay is task 1, academic? And I've pulled our members chat into view here so everybody can see it. Okay, it's really important, everyone, that you are familiar with the different styles of writing. There are 4 main different styles of writing in English, and I believe in other languages as well. And there are 3 main different types of voices that an author can use in their writing. And it's very, very important. And as we can see with many of our members here, they're saying it's expository, right? So expository, it's an expository essay. Very good. Expository essay, as Ali is saying and Janiel is saying, it's an essay which seeks to explain or expose an idea. Okay, and the reason academic IELTS task 1 is this is because university has a lot of expository style writing. So that's what we do here. And it is in the third person voice. So no I, no me, no my, no opinion. Okay, so third person voice. Okay, so start the essay, or we could say start the expository essay using third person voice, author's voice. Okay, by writing the overview. Okay, and what does the overview have? Okay, so by writing the overview. All right, and what is the overview? So what do we have in the overview? Let me again show what our members are doing here. So members, what are we doing in this overview? Okay, and I really want you to keep this in mind and remember this, because so task 1 is not too bad as long as you have the vocabulary and as long as you have a clear idea of what you're doing. So Kyber says the overview is the thesis, right, Kyber? So what you're telling me then is I shouldn't start with the overview. I should start with the introduction. Sorry, my bad. The reason I make that mistake is because really the introduction and the overview should be the same idea, but this expository essay specifically for IELTS has 4 parts. They separate the introduction, the overview, and you're right, Kyber, it is the thesis, but we're not actually starting with that. We'll do that next. So you start with the introduction, then the overview, then the analyses, and then a summary. Okay, and for those of you who are confused about the summary, yes, it is important, and we'll talk more about that. Yeah, Cass says introduction first. Yeah, and you're right, Cass, it is the introduction first. Now, I mean, you will kind of realize in university and in professional writing that the overview and the introduction should not really be separate paragraphs, but IELTS likes to see them separately. So to satisfy IELTS, make it separate. Okay. And Baljit says, yeah, the introduction. Okay, so number 1, the introduction has a paraphrase of the question with more details. To the best of your abilities, okay? So paraphrase as much as you can using synonyms, and give details using the graph, okay? So here we have our original question. All right, the following charts show the percentage of electricity production by fuel source in Belgium in 2 years. Report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So really give me a nice paraphrase here, members, of this question using some information from the graph, and I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, I'll start my own paraphrase and then we'll compare. Okay, so I'm including my 5 different types of fuel sources here, so I'm going to look at that again. So it was coal, oil, natural gas, hydropower, and nuclear power. Okay, so coal, oil, natural gas, hydro power, and nuclear power. In the country of Belgium for 1990, and 2010. Okay. All right. So there's my paraphrase. Let's see what some of our members have here. Okay, so this will probably be pretty tiny if you're looking at it on a mobile phone, but maybe I'll grab a couple and then we'll look at it that way. So let me grab a couple here. This is from Cass. Okay, Cassandra. So this is Cassandra's paraphrase here. All right, so Cassandra writes, the two pie charts below represent, Cassandra, just a quick correction, don't write below, okay? The reason why is because it's awkward, and university professors will actually say this to you, that it's awkward to kind of write the location of information on a piece of paper, because your reader often will not be looking at the piece of paper, so they're like, below where? Below my seat? I don't see anything there, just my feet. Okay, so it's kind of weird. I'm going to emphasize this for students because I often see this and it's really weird, and I'm not sure who is telling students to do this, but it's not good. So students, this is an important tip here, okay? Do not refer to your essay or the location of information on the paper. It is simply awkward and strange, okay? It's considered poor writing. So what I mean by that is you often see students doing this, where they go like this. They go, this essay, let me get rid of this highlighting here. So they'll go, this essay will explain these points in further detail. Okay. There's some very unique types of writing where we do that, but 99% of the time, it's considered bad writing, okay? Why? Because it's not the essay that's explaining these points, it's the author. Okay, so we don't personify the essay. It's called personification, and we don't personify the essay. So we don't make the essay into a person. It's not the essay that's doing it. You're doing it. You're the author. Okay, especially if the author is known, then it's even more bizarre. All right. So does that make logical sense, members? Like, is it clear why we don't refer to the essay? Okay. So we don't refer to the essay, and then we also don't refer to location of information in the essay. So we don't say things like the pie charts below, or we don't say things like as stated above. Okay. Your reader is kind of like, okay, yeah, it was there, I read it, so why are you telling me this again? So especially in a short essay, it's bizarre to state the location of information in the essay. We usually don't reference it. In longer essays that are several pages, we will sometimes refer to locations of information, but like in scientific journals, but not commonly in a simple essay. Okay, all right. Cass says it makes sense. So don't do that. Okay, so don't do that kind of referencing. It's just awkward, right? And any professional writer or professor will tell you the same. Okay, it's not just me. This is not my crazy cockamamie idea. It's logic. Okay, it's logic of writing. All right, so Cass, let's just get back to this real quick, just to give you an idea. So the two pie charts represent, you don't need to tell me that they're below, it's clear, okay, represent the rates of electricity generation by sources of fuel of the country of Belgium. It's a lot of ofs, it's a little bit of an awkward way to express this. In the years. Okay, not terrible, but I think we can do better. So I would say try that again. Okay. All right. Let's take one more. Amrinder. So Amrinder writes this. Here we go. There's a lot of different ways to paraphrase, students. So this is what Amrinder has written. The percentage of fuel source, brackets, coal, oil, natural gas. Amrinder, when you have brackets, there's a space after the last letter, okay? And then there's no space after the bracket. So the opening bracket or the opening parentheses, there's no space, okay? Pay attention to how you use your punctuation. So coal, oil, natural gas. Again, these are common nouns, so don't capitalize them. If it's capitalized in the legend, it's okay, but we shouldn't really be capitalizing common nouns. These aren't names, so we should be keeping these small. Which has been used for electricity production in the duration of 2 decades from 1990 and 2010 in Belgium, is given by these 2 pie charts. Okay, there's a very important correction here, Amrinder. We don't have continuity with pie charts. They're not line graphs, so don't confuse them, okay? In 2 years, we don't have the information for the whole 2 decades. We only have it in 1990 and 2010. Okay, careful with information, all right? All right. So in this way, it's okay, Amrinder. Let's read this again. So the percentage of fuel source, coal, oil, natural gas, hydropower, nuclear power, which has been used for electricity production in the duration of 2 years in 1990 and 2010 in Belgium, is given by these 2 pie charts. Now you need lots of commas here for this to be accurate. Okay. So which has been used for electricity production in the duration of 2 years, comma, in 1990 and 2010, comma, in Belgium, comma, is given by these 2 pie charts. Okay, that would be the correct way to do this. All right. Okay. Let's see. So, okay, so no questions there. Looking good. All right, so that's our introduction. You don't have to get too fancy with your introduction. Just make sure that you don't have mistakes, okay? Be original, don't have mistakes, all right? All right, so let me just stick that there. Let me move the chat out of our way a little bit here. And then we'll get to the next step, which is the overview. The overview are the most obvious features of the chart without, let me capitalize that, without going into detail. Okay, so what's the most obvious here, members? What do we see? So here we go with our overview, and there's definitely, you know, some very observable differences in these 2 pie charts. We can really kind of see a couple of key differences very, very quickly. Okay. All right. What is that? Okay, so what do we see right away? Let's see if our members or if others see what I'm seeing. Okay. So Sandra, Cass, Simranpreet, what do we see? Cass says, in 1990, natural gas and coal have the same ratios. Cass, I think that's too much detail. But then June, okay, let me show everybody what's going on here, what I'm looking at. Okay, so here Cass says natural gas, coal have the same ratios. We can talk about that a bit more later, Cass, but for now it's too much detail. June says it moves from an even to an uneven distribution. Yeah, June, I see that too. So here we can see that in 1990, you have a fairly even distribution for most of these fuel sources, with the exception of hydropower, right? And then in 2010, that changes because you have this very dominant kind of fuel source, and then you have these other three that are making up significantly less, so it's uneven. Yeah, so you have a more even to a more dominant type of reliance in 2010. Okay, and Amrinder's kind of coming up with the same type of concept as well. Okay, and we can see that there's a significant change or a significant shift. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's write that for the overview. All right, so again, as Kyber said earlier, the overview is kind of like the thesis, right? So that's what will give us the starting point for the analysis. All right, okay, so let's do that. So I'll write the overview, you write the overview, and again, just like with the introduction, we'll compare. All right, so at first glance, because it is the first glance, right? You just kind of bing, you take a look at it and you're like, oh, there it is. Okay, so at first glance, it is evident that Belgium had a fairly even distribution of various fuel types to generate electricity in 1990. Especially, especially coal, oil, and natural gas. And then, you know, this task one, they really are looking for comparative language, like however, on the other hand, nevertheless. So using these conjunctions, subordinate conjunctions of opposition, right? They're called subordinate conjunctions of opposition. And your task one is really looking for these subordinate conjunctions. So, however, 2 decades later, there is a significant change, and Belgium has a much greater reliance on nuclear power to produce electricity. Okay. All right. So that's what we can see. Okay. And that's going to set the stage for our comparisons. Okay. For the analysis. All right. Let's see what some of our members have come up with. Okay. So here are our members. Our members are giving their own interpretation, and that's what we're doing here. And here's Bakrat. So Bakrat says, immediately it can be seen that the amount of producing power by hydropower and other sources became less required for production of electricity. Okay, I think you have the right idea, Bakrat, but you need to work on expressing that accurately. Okay, so let me fix this up. All right, so this is what I would do if I were reviewing your essay in my office at a later point. Okay. So I would say immediately it can be seen that the amount of power production, so your order of words here, okay? So order of words. And I would give you a comment bubble like this, order of words, okay? But I'm not going to do that right now because it'll shift my screen. But that's how I would be editing your work, Bakrat. So immediately it can be seen that the amount of power production by four of five sources became less required for the production of electricity in 2010. Okay, so that's what I would do, Bakrat. And then most importantly, what I would do is I would highlight this whole piece here and I would make the comment of this should be your summary, not your overview. Okay. I hope that makes sense. So that's how I would edit that for you. That's definitely a good summary. So once you've finished your essay, that would be a good summary or even a good start to the summary. So I wouldn't say immediately, I would say in summary. We actually have to look at it in a fair bit of detail to recognize that that's really what's happening. Okay, so I would be a little bit, I wouldn't go that far, okay, with your overview. Right? Don't get too clever with your overview because then your reader's going to be like, huh, where are we going with this? Okay, so careful with that. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's take one more. And let me stop reviewing here. Okay, so this is me. So me writes this for the overview. Let me move the chat out of the way. There we go. Okay, so me writes at initial look. Okay, at an initial look, we can actually kind of count that. At an initial look, it is clear that the ratio of each source was fairly evenly distributed in 1990, especially coal, oil, and natural gas. I would probably use a semicolon there, a little bit of a longer break. So instead of a quarter break, go for a half break or a half stop. However, after 20 years, there was a paradigm shift, which was all of the pieces reduced in portion. A paradigm shift. Okay, this is, as far as information is concerned, this is a bit confusing as to what we're actually expressing, okay, or what you're expressing. There was a paradigm shift. And it's not true that all of the pieces, so be really careful. Paradigm shift, whereby most fuel sources were reduced in portion, I would say proportion, except for nuclear power. Okay, and you have to be careful with that because obviously there's a very significant increase in nuclear power, and you can't mislead your reader like that because they will get really confused. Well, what's going on with that big piece over there, right? So students, pay really careful attention to having accurate information, okay? Information, word choice, complete sentences, okay? Me, Careful with that, all right? Okay, going back to the essay, so far we're looking at these pie charts. Again, these pie charts are showing the percentage of electricity production in the country of Belgium in 1990 and 2010 by these 4 different fuel sources: coal, oil, natural gas, hydropower, nuclear power. Now that we have our introduction and our overview, we can get into the body, right? So we can start analyzing this a little bit more. All right, so let's do that. So we said in our overview that in 1990, we had a fairly even distribution, and we certainly did. We can see here that we have basically an equal portion of reliance on coal and natural gas in 1990, and then just a bit less reliance on oil. So I would make that my number 1, maybe my number 2, and then this would be my number 3. Okay, so now again, you know, with these, you don't want to be just reporting the percentages, but you want to be reporting the proportions. So this is just over a quarter, okay? This is just under a quarter, all right? And then we have these 2 pieces that make up the remaining roughly 1/4 as well, all right? Okay. Now, the greatest increase or the greatest shift, or the most significant shift, of course, here is nuclear power. So nuclear power here, very important. There's a massive increase in reliance or dependence on nuclear power, producing well over a half. In fact, it's more about 2/3 of the electricity in Belgium, and we have a significant reduction for reliance on coal, and even more so on natural gas. Look at natural gas in 1990, it's 28, and then here natural gas is just 4% in 2010. So that would definitely be my 5th point. And then these 2 together would be my 6th point, because there's definitely a reduction there. Not as significant as with natural gas, but definitely a reduction of using coal and oil. Okay, so again, let's do this. So now we're analyzing, and we're going sentence by sentence. I'm going to be a little bit quicker here, students, so I'm going to get going with these comparisons. I think I've shown you what the approach is. So starting with 1990, with the 2 main sources that are over a quarter. Okay. So here we go. Analysis. Okay. All right. And so for the analysis, you do exactly what I just showed you, whereby you identify 5 to 6 key points of comparison. Which reflect your overview. Okay, so I'm going to just get right into it. In 1990, and again, you know, if you need to go back, it was natural gas and coal. Okay, so natural gas and coal were equally dominant for producing electricity in Belgium. Each making up just over a quarter of the total. In close second place was oil, at just under a quarter of the total, 22%. Don't write percent, okay? Use the symbol for percent. Don't waste time on that, okay? All right, so I've already gotten my point 1 and my point 2. All right, so the remaining 23% of power was produced using nuclear energy and hydropower. Okay. Now I don't separate these two, like least of all hydropower, just hydropower so far. Okay. All right, so that is my start. All right, and then now I can move on to my next points with that same kind of smoothness and fluency in the writing. I have lots of clarity, so I know where I'm going with this. Let's see how our members are doing, and I hope everybody is writing. Okay, all right. So Ali Hatim says, looking at the charts in more detail, in 1990, the two main sources of power production was coal and natural gas, which were equally dominant, making up just above a quarter of the total. Okay, so Ali, finish that sentence with of the total. Otherwise, I think it's a very good start. Okay. And then Ali keeps going. The second most important fuel type was oil, with just under a quarter of the total at 22%. Very nice. Okay, very good, Ali. You're typing and thinking very, very similarly to what I'm doing. Okay. Nevertheless, 2 decades later, yeah, and you want to use that nice paraphrase of 10 years, decade, so 2 decades later. Okay, nuclear power reliance on nuclear power increased by nearly 5-fold to 2/3 of Belgium's electrical power output. Okay, and natural gas, conversely, natural gas drastically dropped to just, what was it, 4%, to just 4% of the fuel source for electrical output. Okay, and then we have oil and coal, right? And they were basically half. So here, sorry, there's a bit of scrolling there, but if we look at, so we compare, you know, we have this number and this number, so 28% versus 13%, and here we have 22%, and then again we have 13%. It's roughly half, right? So it's roughly half the proportion of 2 decades prior. So you can again use that kind of language, and that's an expository essay, right? We're exposing, explaining, all right? So that was coal and oil, yeah. Okay. So coal and oil decreased to roughly half of their previous portions by 2020. Okay, and if you're really fast and you want to, kind of talk about the hydropower as part of it here. So we've got hydropower, these little tiny slices there. You can, it's not key information. Again, remember that in IELTS Task 1, you're writing about 220 words of the most important information. And the question, I'm sure all of you have realized this, that the question says, report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So we're talking about the main features, okay, main features. And we're making comparisons where relevant. Now, in the real world, if we're holding a presentation on this, the hydropower relative to the other fuel sources is so small that it's not really it's not a main feature, and it's not overly relevant to the power production. I'm sure Belgium wouldn't panic if hydropower were to suddenly disappear. They would definitely panic if nuclear power were to disappear, right? They'd be in a lot of trouble. So kind of think about that, right? But if you're quick and you're going for that band 9, you might want to include a little bit on that. So you can say, lastly, and it's not last but not least, it's literally least. So lastly, hydropower only accounted for a small fraction of electrical or electricity production in both of these years. Okay, I wouldn't even bother going into 6% and then a third of that, 2%. It's just, they're tiny, they're insignificant. Okay, and then I would probably go with Baccarat's summary. Okay. So here I'm just going to say, let's see, can we do it this way? So Baccarat, I'm gonna steal your summary here because I think it works. Okay, I think it's fine. So let's say accept change. Yeah, there we go. Let me. So I would just do that for my summary. Exactly what Baccarat wrote. In summary, it can be seen that the amount of power production by 4 of 5 sources became less required for generating electricity in 2010. Simultaneously, reliance on nuclear power grew exponentially. Okay, so that's how I would summarize that. All right. Okay, so here is my complete essay, and let's just read this together now, and then I'll take a look at a little bit more of your writing in the chat. Members, don't worry, I have not forgotten. I just wanted to get to the end of this with some fluency so you get the overall picture here, okay? So these two pie charts depict the percentage of electrical power production by 5 different fuel sources: coal, oil, natural gas, hydropower, and nuclear power in the country of Belgium for 1990 and 2010. At first glance, it is evident that Belgium had a fairly even distribution of various fuel types to generate electricity in 1990, especially coal, oil, and natural gas. However, 2 decades later, there is a significant change, and Belgium has a much greater reliance on nuclear power to produce electricity. In 1990, natural gas and coal were equally dominant for producing electricity in Belgium, each making up just over a quarter of the total. In close second place was oil at just under a quarter of the total, 22%. The remaining 23% of power was produced using nuclear energy and hydropower. Nevertheless, 2 decades later, reliance on nuclear power increased by nearly fivefold to 2/3 of Belgium's electrical power output. Conversely, natural gas drastically dropped to just 4% of the fuel source for electrical output. Coal and oil decreased to roughly half of their previous portions by 2020. Lastly, hydropower, and I might, if I want to be specific here, I might include at 13%, okay? A little bit clear. Lastly, hydropower only accounted for a small fraction of electricity production in both of these years. In summary, it can be seen that the amount of power production by 4 of 5 sources became less required for generating electricity in 2010. Simultaneously, reliance on nuclear power grew exponentially. Okay. So happy with that. It should get me a pretty good band score. Should. Okay. Cass writes, after 2 decades, nuclear power dominated as the main source of electricity in Belgium, dramatically increasing by over a half of the total. Yeah, Cass, and 67% in fact is 2/3 of the total, so 2/3 is even more accurate. I was thinking over a half at first too, but then at second look, Cass, I realized that, wait a second, that's 2/3, right? 67%, it's not just over a half. Kyber writes, furthermore, the production of electricity from natural gas and oil were relatively the same in both 2 years. For both years, as it counts only a quarter of the total in 2010, which was 17 and 13%. Kyber, that's a bit of an awkward comparison. I probably wouldn't do that, okay? It's a bit awkward. All right. Okay, so some good writing there, members. Again, to get an idea of what band score you would get, please just, finish the essay and send it to me by email to adrian@aehelp.com, and then I will send you back an email saying, okay, yeah, this is a band 6 roughly, or band 7, band 8. So I'll give you a band score estimate. Just send it to me by email, okay? And for all of our viewers, you can get editing, professional editing on your work by going to gieltshelp.com for general IELTS and aehelp.com for academic IELTS. All right. On our websites, once you join, click the big red button. Okay. Again, it's a one-time payment there when you click that big red button for lifetime access. Same thing with the academic IELTS. Okay, so click that big red button that's just above my head there. And then in your My Student account, you do have this Task 1 and Task 2 editing, where you can get professional editing work. Members, good work in today's class. I know these Task 1 classes are pretty high-paced and they're pretty intense, and there's lots of good writing there. Okay, so thank you, Carolina, for moderating the chat. Thank you, everyone, for being with me, and stick around. I'll be back in 30 minutes with reading passage, where we will listen to a British person read the passage as well, and then we will answer, and I will talk strategy on what you should do to get those high band scores in the reading section. So I'm Adrian. Again, I hope your weekend is starting well, and hopefully I will see you soon. Bye for now.